When sizing electrical wiring and circuit breakers for equipment, it's crucial to understand the 125% rule. The marked current on a unit represents the minimum current it's expected to draw during normal operation. However, this isn't the whole picture. Electrical equipment, especially motors and inductive loads, often draw significantly higher current during startup or when subjected to heavy loads. This inrush current, if not accounted for, can overload undersized wiring and trip breakers unnecessarily, or worse, cause overheating and potential fire hazards. To mitigate these risks, electrical codes mandate that the wiring and overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers, be sized at a minimum of 125% of the unit's marked current. This provides a safety margin to accommodate the temporary surges in current without causing nuisance tripping or stressing the conductors. The 125% rule is particularly important for motors, compressors, and other inductive loads which are known for their high inrush currents. Without the additional capacity, these devices could repeatedly trip the breaker upon starting, rendering them unusable. The calculation is straightforward. If a unit is marked with a current of, for example, 20 amps, the wiring and breaker must be sized to handle at least 25 amps. This is achieved by multiplying the marked current by 1.25, that is 20 amps times 1.25 equals 25 amps. Selecting the appropriate wire gauge involves consulting ampacity tables in the National Electrical Code, or NEC. These tables specify the maximum current that different wire sizes can safely carry, taking into account factors like insulation type, ambient temperature, and the number of conductors bundled together. It's essential to choose a wire gauge that has an ampacity rating equal to or greater than the calculated minimum of 25 amps in our example. Similarly, the circuit breaker should be rated at or above the calculated minimum. Standard breaker sizes are typically available in increments of 15 amps, 20 amps, 25 amps, 30 amps, and so on. In this case, a 25 amp breaker would be the appropriate choice. It's important to note that this is a minimum requirement. In some situations, it may be necessary to increase the wire and breaker size even further. For example, if the equipment is subject to frequent starts and stops, or if it operates in a high ambient temperature environment, a larger safety margin may be warranted. Furthermore, local electrical codes may have additional requirements that exceed the national standards. It's always advisable to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that the wiring and overcurrent protection are properly sized for the specific application. Failing to adhere to the 125% rule can have serious consequences. Undersized wiring can overheat, causing insulation to melt and potentially leading to short circuits and fires. Overloaded breakers can trip frequently, disrupting service and potentially damaging equipment. In extreme cases, undersized wiring can even cause the equipment to fail prematurely. The NEC provides detailed guidelines for calculating conductor ampacity and selecting overcurrent protection devices. Table 310.15b16, formerly Table 310.16, is a crucial reference for determining the allowable ampacities of insulated conductors rated up to and including 2000 volts. This table takes into account the conductor material, insulation type, and ambient temperature. It's essential to use the correct table and apply the appropriate correction factors to ensure accurate ampacity calculations. Correction factors are necessary when the ambient temperature exceeds the temperature rating of the conductor insulation. For example, if the ambient temperature is 40 degrees Celsius and the conductor insulation is rated for 75 degrees Celsius, a correction factor must be applied to reduce the allowable ampacity of the conductor. These correction factors are typically found in the NEC tables. Dirting factors are also important to consider when multiple conductors are bundled together in a raceway or cable. When conductors are bundled, they generate heat, which can reduce their ampacity. Dirting factors are applied to compensate for this effect. The NEC provides tables that specify the dirting factors for different numbers of conductors. In addition to the 125% rule, other factors can influence the selection of wire and breaker sizes. These include voltage drop, short circuit current rating, and equipment grounding. Voltage drop refers to the decrease in voltage that occurs along a conductor due to its resistance. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to malfunction or fail. The NEC recommends limiting voltage drop to a maximum of 3% for branch circuits and 5% for feeders. Short circuit current rating refers to the maximum current that a conductor or overcurrent protection device can safely withstand during a short circuit. It's essential to ensure that the equipment has a short circuit current rating that is adequate for the available fault current at the installation location. Equipment grounding is a critical safety measure that helps to prevent electric shock. The NEC requires that all electrical equipment be properly grounded. Grounding provides a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source, causing the overcurrent protection device to trip and de-energize the circuit. When selecting wire and breaker sizes, it's important to consider the entire electrical system, not just the individual equipment. The electrical system should be designed to provide adequate capacity, protect against overloads and short circuits, and ensure the safety of personnel and equipment. The 125% rule is a fundamental principle of electrical safety. By adhering to this rule, electrical systems can be designed and installed to provide reliable and safe operation. This is especially important in industrial and commercial settings where equipment is often subjected to heavy loads and frequent starts and stops. In residential applications, the 125% rule is equally important for appliances such as air conditioners, refrigerators, and electric heaters. These appliances can draw significant current, and undersized wiring can pose a fire hazard. When in doubt, it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that the electrical system is properly designed and installed. A qualified electrician can assess the specific requirements of the application and select the appropriate wire and breaker sizes to provide safe and reliable operation. Furthermore, it's crucial to ensure that all electrical work is performed in accordance with the NEC and local electrical codes. These codes are designed to protect people and property from electrical hazards. Ignoring these codes can have serious consequences, including fines, legal liability, and personal injury. The NEC is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest advances in electrical technology and safety practices. It's important to stay up to date on the latest code requirements to ensure that electrical installations are safe and compliant. Electrical safety is the shared responsibility. Electricians, engineers, inspectors, and homeowners all play a role in ensuring that electrical systems are safe and reliable. By working together, we can prevent electrical accidents and protect people and property from harm. One aspect of the 125% rule that sometimes causes confusion is its application to continuous loads. A continuous load is defined as a load that operates for 3 hours or more at a time. For continuous loads, the NEC requires that the overcurrent protection device be rated at 125% of the continuous load current. This means that if a circuit supplies a continuous load of 16 amps, the breaker must be rated at least 20 amps. This is to prevent the breaker from tripping due to the prolonged heating effect of the continuous load. The 125% rule applies to both the wire and the breaker for continuous loads. The wire must be sized to carry at least 125% of the continuous load current, and the breaker must be rated at least 125% of the continuous load current. In addition to the 125% rule, it's also important to consider the ambient temperature when selecting wire sizes. The ampacity of a wire decreases as the ambient temperature increases. This is because the higher temperature increases the resistance of the wire, which in turn reduces its ability to carry current safely. The NEC provides tables that specify the ampacity of wires at different ambient temperatures. It's important to use these tables to select a wire size that is appropriate for the ambient temperature in which it will be installed. Another important factor to consider when selecting wire and breaker sizes is the voltage drop. Voltage drop is the decrease in voltage that occurs along a wire due to its resistance. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to malfunction or fail. The NEC recommends limiting voltage drop to a maximum of 3% for branch circuits and 5% for feeders. To minimize voltage drop, it's important to use a wire size that is large enough to carry the current without excessive voltage drop. The NEC provides formulas for calculating voltage drop. These formulas take into account the wire size, the current, and the length of the wire. It's also important to consider the short circuit current rating of the wire and breaker. The short circuit current rating is the maximum current the wire or breaker can safely withstand during a short circuit. A short circuit is a fault condition in which current flows through an unintended path. Short circuits can generate very high currents, which can damage equipment and cause fires. It's important to select wires and breakers that have a short circuit current rating that is high enough to withstand the maximum short circuit current that could occur at the installation location. The short circuit current rating of a wire or breaker is typically marked on the device. When selecting wire and breaker sizes, it's also important to consider the type of load that the circuit will be serving. Different types of loads have different current characteristics. For example, motors typically draw a high inrush current when they start. This inrush current can be several times the normal running current. It's important to select a breaker that is sized to handle the inrush current of the motor. The NEC provides guidelines for selecting breakers for different types of loads. These guidelines take into account the inrush current of the load, as well as the normal running current. In summary, the 125% rule is a critical safety requirement that must be followed when selecting wire and breaker sizes. This rule ensures that the wiring and overcurrent protection devices are sized to handle the maximum current that the equipment may draw under normal and abnormal operating conditions. In addition to the 125% rule, it's also important to consider the ambient temperature, voltage drop, short circuit current rating, and the type of load that the circuit will be serving. By taking all of these factors into account, it's possible to select wire and breaker sizes that will provide safe and reliable operation. Always consult the NEC and local electrical codes for specific requirements. If there is any doubt, consult with a qualified electrician. Furthermore, consider the impact of harmonic currents. Nonlinear loads, such as electronic devices and LED lighting, generate harmonic currents that can increase the current flowing through the neutral conductor. This can lead to overheating and potential hazards. To mitigate this risk, it may be necessary to increase the size of the neutral conductor or use the special type of transformer that is designed to handle harmonic currents. The NEC provides guidelines for dealing with harmonic currents. Another important consideration is the type of wiring method used. Different wiring methods have different ampacity ratings. For example, conductors installed in conduit have a lower ampacity rating than conductors installed in free air. This is because the conduit restricts the flow of air, which reduces the ability of the conductors to dissipate heat. The NEC provides tables that specify the ampacity ratings for different wiring methods. Finally, it's important to ensure that all electrical work is performed by qualified personnel. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it's essential to have the knowledge and skills to perform it safely. Qualified electricians are trained to follow the NEC and local electrical codes, and they have the experience to identify and correct potential hazards. Never attempt to perform electrical work unless you are qualified to do so. In Minnesota, as in other states, electrical work is regulated by licensing requirement. Ensure that any electrician you hire is properly licensed and insured. This provides assurance that they have met the minimum qualifications and are accountable for their work. Local jurisdictions may have additional requirements, so it's always a good idea to check with the city or county to verify compliance. In conclusion, proper wire and breaker sizing is essential for electrical safety and reliability. The 125% rule is a fundamental principle that must be followed, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. It's crucial to consider all relevant factors, including ambient temperature, voltage drop, short circuit current rating, load type, wiring method, and harmonic currents. By paying attention to these details and following the NEC and local electrical codes, it's possible to create electrical systems that are safe, efficient, and reliable. Remember that electrical work should always be performed by qualified personnel. This not only ensures safety but also helps to protect your investment and avoid costly repairs in the future. Regular inspections and maintenance can also help to identify potential problems before they become serious hazards. By taking a proactive approach to electrical safety, we can all help to prevent accidents and protect lives. In addition to the technical aspects of wire and breaker sizing, it's also important to consider the human element. Electrical safety training is essential for anyone who works with or around electricity. This training should cover topics such as the hazards of electricity, safe work practices, and the proper use of personal protective equipment, PPE. PPE includes items such as insulated gloves, safety glasses, and arc-rated clothing. It's important to use the correct PPE for the task at hand. For example, when working on energized equipment, it's essential to wear insulated gloves that are rated for the voltage level. It's also important to inspect PPE regularly for damage. Damaged PPE should be replaced immediately. Another important aspect of electrical safety is lockout/tagout procedures. Lockout/tagout is a safety procedure that is used to prevent accidental energization of equipment during maintenance or repair. The procedure involves disconnecting the equipment from its power source and then locking and tagging the disconnect switch. The tag indicates that the equipment is out of service and should not be energized. Lockout/tagout procedures should be followed whenever work is being performed on electrical equipment. Electrical safety is a continuous process. It's important to stay up to date on the latest safety practices and to continuously improve safety procedures. By making electrical safety a priority, we can create a safer working environment for everyone. Always remember to energize circuits before working on them whenever possible. This is the single most effective way to prevent electrical shock. Use appropriate testing equipment to verify that the circuit is energized before beginning work. Treat all electrical circuits as if they are energized until proven otherwise. Maintain a safe working distance from energized equipment. Never reach into electrical panels or other enclosures without proper training and PPE. Be aware of your surroundings. Look for potential hazards such as wet floors or overhead power lines. Use caution when working in confined spaces. Confined spaces can be hazardous due to the presence of flammable gases or lack of oxygen. Follow proper procedures for working in confined spaces. Report any unsafe conditions to your supervisor. Do not attempt to correct unsafe conditions unless you are qualified to do so. Cooperate with safety inspections. Safety inspections are conducted to identify potential hazards and ensure that safety procedures are being followed. Take corrective action to address any deficiencies that are identified during safety inspections. Participate in safety meetings. Safety meetings are a forum for discussing safety issues and sharing best practices. By actively participating in safety meetings, you can help to create a safer working environment for everyone. In addition to the NEC, there are other standards and regulations that may apply to electrical installations. These include standards from organizations such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEE, and the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. It's important to be familiar with all applicable standards and regulations. These standards and regulations are designed to protect people and property from electrical hazards. By following these standards and regulations, we can create a safer world for everyone. And remember that the 125% rule is not just a suggestion, it's a requirement. Failing to comply with this requirement can have serious consequences. So, always take the time to properly size your wires and breakers. It's a small investment that can pay off big in terms of safety and reliability.